Good evening. Good evening. Can you hear me? I don't hear you though.
While I was muted.
Oh, now I hear you. Well, good evening. Good evening. Good evening, everyone. Um, Good evening to all my beautiful, bold, and black people all over the country, around Baltimore City and around the globe. Welcome to another rendition of Frontline News, where we bring you news from the front lines of urban America and beyond. And we have a hot show for y'all tonight. I'm telling y'all, I want y'all to spread this. I want this to go viral. I want this to go out there in the community. We have a hot topic. I even came up with a name for this episode. This episode is going to be the weaponization and gaslighting of Baltimore. I want y'all to hear that again. The weaponization and gaslighting of Baltimore. And we're going to get into a deep conversation because in some cases, we have folks that have been, well, in many cases, have put themselves in the position to take on many different tasks, to address many of the different social issues within our community. But in many cases, we see gaslighting, we see weaponizing, we see, unfortunately, a loss of truly trust when it comes in some cases to handling some of these issues in our community, or even folks sometimes taking advantage of things that go on within our community. They're supposed to be resolving or supposed to be solving, or they've been delegated to task, or even in some cases have assumed their own charge and taking the responsibility of a task, of a social ill within our community. And in many cases, what ends up happening is those folks that have stepped into those positions to take charge, of whatever the social ills may be in our community. We find that many times there are some other additional agendas, um, uh, and we're going to have a conversation about this at some time. I'll never forget this. And I used to get into a fight with Darren Muhammad, and y'all could go run and tell him I told him his name. Go run, tell that. I'm going to say this all evening, too, by the way. I'm going to tell y'all, go run, tell that, because y'all going to need to go run, tell that person I said something about them. And again, this is not in a negative condemnation in any means, but I never forget that Darren Muhammad used to say all the time, used to say, that I was part of the grant chasing task force. And let me be clear, I've never received a grant, never got a grant. I've never applied for a grant. Our organization, even though our organization is new, People Empowered by the Struggle, we haven't necessarily yet applied for a grant. We're still in the process of learning that whole grant writing process. In many cases, we rely on our own paychecks, our own hard-earned earnings and living, hustling and bustling, and trying to survive the best way we can to run our organization. We have never been given a grant by the city. We've never been given a grant by any of these foundations or organizations, and we're definitely not grant chasers. We don't chase grants, and in many cases, a lot of times we don't want to be associated or affiliated with other people because in many cases we don't want to be guilty by association for some of these people's corruption or ethics or morals or whatever their particular issues may be. So I'm telling you that this is going to be hot tonight. I want y'all to please share this, make this go viral, let everybody know exactly what's going on with this conversation tonight. We got to have real talk sometimes with each other. We got to put each other out there sometimes and have these discussions. We may not necessarily like it, but at the end of the day, we're going to figure out how to best navigate for our community. And we're not going to allow certain things to be tolerated or certain narratives to be painted, about our community. So,
Well, and Jason, I want to say something.
mm.
No, we don't grant chase because we don't know how to grant right. So,
so
if
there you go. If you're a grant writer out there and you'd like to help us, because we've taken courses, we've tried to learn the process. The process is very complicated for us. Many times we're too busy out there
they even
actually
sit
doing the
down, even
work.
to look at looking at how to write a grant.
Correct.
So that
Correct.
grant chasing thing is out the window. If I knew how to write a grant, trust, one for certain and two for sure. I'm
Yeah.
running to a brand.
Yeah.
Because guess
Yeah.
what? We see that nobody else is going to have our back for us. You got to help us help each other. And nobody wants to help us. So we do it ourselves.
Yeah.
Because just like you said, it's certain things that we will not do. We will not compromise ourselves nor our organization
Or
to
our
be a part of
people.
somebody's
Or our people.
nonsense.
Or our
Yeah.
people.
Or our people nonsense mess. We will not compromise to for somebody to tie our hands and duct tape our mouths. We're not doing that, and we definitely don't affiliate, associate, umbrella under, umbrella over people with integrity issues.
So, look, we getting jumping ahead. We're already jumping ahead, kind of
I was
giving
laying
you
out the basic.
right. No, I was saying we jumping ahead. We already giving you a taste of what's to be expected this evening. We do have to backtrack a little bit and make sure we do some housekeeping. Of course, as always, we come on here and we got to thank Donnie Glover and the whole Black USA News team. We also got to thank Donnie Glover and his whole Be More News publication, as well as Donnie Glover himself for allowing us this platform. And home of the original Black Wall Street series. Make sure you get out there and get you a copy. Donnie has several books written. One is Unapologetically Black. You got to get yourself a copy of Unapologetically Black. And he does have a new publication out as well. Down there on the bottom, make sure you support his new book, I Am Black Wall Street, with forwards from Billy Murphy Jr. It's now available on Amazon, Barnes and Nobles. Make sure you get it, download it on your Kindle, or get you a hard copy. Make sure you get you a hard copy. You see Donnie out there, make sure you get Donnie to sign it for you, um, uh, because he is one of B More's heroes. So, by the way, and make sure you get yourself a signed copy. Also, this episode is being brought to you by all those fine sponsors that you will see down on the bottom during this episode. You'll see them down on the bottom. I always say, even if you just refer somebody to one of our Black businesses or just purchase one item per week, figure out one item per week, utilize the legal services, figure out something that you could utilize within these sponsors that make it possible for the whole Black USA News team to be able to come on here. There are so many great programs, and I watch many of them throughout the week. There are so many great programs, so many folks that I have great respect for in the community that are doing so much, different works. They're in the different lanes. They're doing so much work out there in reference to the community. And Donnie has really given us an outlet to come on and be able to inform you and kind of keep you abreast as to what's going on with all of our different organizations, all of our different initiatives and stuff that are going on out there. So again, thank you to the whole Black USA News team and Donnie Glover, and to the whole Black USA News team and family of programs that we have on this network. So again, thank you, and please support our sponsors. It's also being brought to you by People Empowered by the Struggle. We are a one-stop shop for all struggles. We are a 24-hour operation. We don't take off for our birthday, your birthday, Yolanda's birthday, or Jesus' birthday. And so we are always out here 24 hours a day. We get phone calls all time of the night, whether we're talking people down off a ledge, we're trying to help people in reference to housing issues, homelessness issues, even dealing with the criminal justice system, domestic violence, whatever your issue is, put your trust in us. Allow us to help you to navigate through, this spider web of just nonsense sometimes when it comes to governmental bureaucracy. Allow us to try to help you, or even just life bureaucracies. Allow us to be able to help you to navigate through your struggles. And we've helped many of folks, and we don't come on here and we don't go Facebook Live and showcase their pain. We don't go live putting out our Cash App out there. Although we'd love for you to just organically support us, but we don't go out there necessarily highlighting people's pain, quote unquote pain, and their issues to try to get y'all to donate to us. If you're going to donate to us, please donate out of your own kindness, out of your own, compassion for and heart for what we do. But if you want to reach us, you can reach out to us. Our number is 443-355-0814. Or you can also go to our email and send us an email. We'd love to hear from you. pebts.org@gmail.com. Or you can easily also go to our website, and I thought I had that listed up there. My fault, family. I thought I had this up here. Let me make sure that it shows up there. Um, or you could visit our website at pebts.org, learn more about us. There is a donate link on there. It works. There are several different ways that you can donate to us off of the website. Go to the website and give us a contribution. Again, every dollar I can guarantee you that we spend, plus money out of our own pockets, go out to helping families, helping folks within the community to navigate through their struggles. So with that, the housekeeping's out of the way. Let's move forward. Yolanda will be back in a second. I already know she's getting phone calls in the middle of the show in reference to people and folks from our community that need help. So, and there you go. All right, so let's start this off. So, this weekend there was an incident that jumped down, and there are some things that we definitely want to clarify.
Wait, Mr.
Just
Ron on?
Not yet. Nope, not yet. We're still waiting on, and everybody's been given an invitation, including some of the folks we will be talking about this evening. They've been given an invitation, and they're more than welcome to join us if they like. Matter of fact, anyone is willing to join us if they like. You can come on, jump on here at any time. Here's the information. All you gotta do is copy that link right there into your browser, and we will let you in backstage, and we will bring you in, and you can be a guest on our program. We have an open policy here, and we want to get into these discussions with the community. We don't want it to be just about just the host that you see on the show and our organization and the work that we do. We want those frontliners. We want those grassroots organizations. We want those who are out there in the front lines of our community. We want you to come on and have these discussions and these debates, and let's figure these things out and find out what is the best way to address the issues within our community. So, without further ado, so this weekend there were some events that took place in Baltimore City, and one happened to be truly, I will call it, although some folks don't see it that way, an attack on our homeless community. But again, there is a reason why, in some cases, law enforcement ended up coming down on our homeless community
Wait a minute,
this
Jason, I got
weekend.
a question for you.
Mhm.
Before we get started, I got a question. Who did you invite?
Oh, I invited whoever, whatever, whenever. And again, the invitation is open to everyone. But
I'm talking about, did you send somebody a personal one?
I did send one a personal one, and we're waiting to see if they will accept our invitation or not. But I did send this out to Miss Flowers. And you can go run tell that. I told you I'm gonna be saying that all evening. You can go run tell that that we did invite Miss Flowers to come on with us. And let's have the debate discussion, whatever it's going to turn into. Let's have that discussion, because there's some things that we have seen, and again, we won't compromise. I don't do the compromising. That's why for years I've never joined any organization. And it is this lady right here that you see on the screen is the only organization that I decided out of all the years that I've been here in Baltimore to join up with. And the reason why is because of her integrity. The reason why is because of our uncompromising position when it comes to our people. It also because she's unapologetically Black. And if it wasn't for many of those traits that I find to be, stellar traits in our community, I wouldn't have joined her organization. But again, there's plenty of organizations that I've been around, and I've always thought about joining certain organizations, but just the vibes weren't right. In some cases, I was kicked out of organizations before I even had a chance to join. I used to be a part, or used to go and partake in the meetings with the Baltimore Black Think Tank. Go run, tell that. Go back and go tell them that I said the Baltimore Black Think Tank. I had an opportunity to be a part of that. They kicked me out and called me a CIA spy, said that I was associated with the CIA.
Well,
I don't think
Jason,
that.
that's what people do. That's what people do when they, one, you're stronger than everybody, and two, that's what people do when they don't agree with you. See, that's the problem. People always seem to think that they're under attack when we don't agree with them. We don't have to agree with you.
Correct.
That's not liberation. That's not that's not being truthful and honest. I
That's not
don't.
revolutionary. That's
Right,
not
but see, the thing
revolutionary.
is that even in our own organization, everybody don't always agree with me. Do you think
Correct.
I'm just gonna sit up there and start a whole bunch of nonsense because nobody agrees with me, or say let's vote the person off the island because I don't agree or they don't agree? No, it's always room. In order for you to be an effective leader, you have to be an effective follower.
Mm,
Um, yeah, in order for us, in order for us to know how to lead, we have to know how to follow. And it's never too late to learn, grow, listen, or, you know, just sit back and not be on the forefront of everything.
yeah. Yeah. So again, to start this off, so this weekend there was again, an event that jumped off at the homeless encampment down there by Gay Street, down there by the old diner, where they hold the farmers market every Sunday. Now, originally, the folks that majority of the folks that are down there are majority of the folks from the original encampment, the tent city encampment, the Occupy City Hall movement that took place several weeks prior to. And even during that time, Yolanda worked very diligently to work with the city. And when we mean work with the city, we don't mean like employed with the city, paid off by the city, because when we say certain words, it's like, people have a tendency to interpret it differently. But when we mean by work, she could communicated with the city, she communicated with the agencies, and she really worked on trying to get the majority of the men and women that were down there at the occupied tent city to get them into some sort of program, temporary shelter, get into something so that we could monitor what was going on, get you on that pathway to hopefully get some sort of housing option at the end. Because I think there's a misconception, and me and Yolanda, have been having this conversation the last couple of days. That there really seems to be a misconception. I think that it's unrealistic, and we set unrealistic expectations to, especially our homeless population, when we tell them, we're going to get you housing, or you're going to be placed in housing, or you're eventually going to be in housing, or eventually you're going to be in a home. Because I don't care what city, state you may think that you're in, housing just doesn't pop out of the thin air, and housing just doesn't, crap out of somebody's buttocks at will. It doesn't happen that way. There is a process, and right now, Yolanda has 8 women and with children. Two of the families have children with disabilities that we are in the process that we are in the process of trying to get some sort of help for. Um, that currently the shelters are filled up, the programs are filled up, and unfortunately, we have 8 families that are still looking to be placed into some sort of temporary housing or shelter circumstance until they can get to a voucher or get assessed to what their needs are and get them to the next level or the next step, which would be some sort of hopefully permanent housing. But we set unrealistic expectations when we mislead folks within our community, believing that we're going to resolve and cure these issues when there may be many different underlying issues that have to be addressed first. And prime example, you can't take someone who may have mental health issues, may have substance abuse issues, may have all kinds of other particular issues within their life, financial issues, etc., and even physical disabilities, and take them and say, okay, I'm going to put you in a house where you're going to be required to pay a rent, and then expect you to maintain that or sustain that for the long run. And with the limited resources that we know of as far as personnel is concerned, you can't always necessarily expect caseworkers, social workers, and some of these folks that have been put in charge to try to oversee someone who is going through a homeless pathway, let's say, you can't expect these folks to necessarily come through with what they're supposed to do. The city can't even do a good job in picking up the trash every week. So if
Well,
the city
Jason,
can't even
let's
pick up the
be
trash, how do you expect the city to take care of, going out and monitoring these families and monitoring our homeless community?
let's be
Right.
completely honest. Baltimore City never lied, never said anything, and I don't know why people assume that we have a housing first model. We do not. Um, we do not have a. Once they close the deputy commissioner's office, we don't have emergency housing anymore.
And
We
tell,
don't.
give them the story behind that. Who was the deputy commissioner, and what was his role?
The deputy commissioner was Reggie Scriber. His role was to provide, emergency housing, shelter, and all kinds of things that people needed under his housing authority. Um, Once Brandon Scott got in office, it was disbanded and they named it the Ombudsman's Office. So that then removed the emergency housing. So there is no emergency housing. There is no affordable housing, and there is no housing first model in Baltimore City. And when we talk about realistically, we're gonna have homelessness, and everybody
God,
has
they,
to
they
wait.
say in
The
the
wait
Bible,
list,
the poor will always be with us.
the
It
poor
says it
will
in the
be with us
Bible.
always. You're absolutely correct. And it's no secret that these things does not exist. It's just that we have a problem with people not telling people it does not exist. Um, we don't have a rent cap. People can't afford to pay rent. So realistically, it's unrealistic for them to think that, a voucher or a subsidy is just going to be given because we hold a protest. That's not what happens.
Right.
When we were down there the other day, and for some reason, people seem to think that, you know, um, conversations were not had just because I didn't have it with a certain individual. And I didn't run and go tell somebody, oh, this is what they just said, doesn't mean that the conversation did not happen. The words that was used was, what did she say? What was the words that was used? It was a what?
What? I'm sorry.
What did she call you and say earlier?
Oh, that I was giving misleading information.
Misleading information. Just because
Right.
we did not run and tell you what happened does not mean
Right.
it was misleading.
And you were actually communicating to the ground, so it wasn't like you weren't talking to
I
anyone.
went straight to them.
You were actually
I don't
dealing
go
with the
through
homeless.
nobody else.
Correct. You are. Let me just explain this powerful black woman that you see there. She stands independently. She walks with no one. And in many cases when
And will
she's dealing
challenge
with
anybody.
correct, and in many cases when she's dealing with business, she deals with the parties to be, and not necessarily
Third
some
party.
third party person. So she was dealing directly with Deputy Mayor Leach. She was dealing with housing services, homeless services. She was communicating with the mayor's office. She was communicating with the folks to try to find
Christopher
what
Shorter.
right. Christopher Shorter, the city solicitor. No, not the city solicitor. I'm sorry, the city manager. The
City administrator.
city administrator, right? And so, and what the conversation was, what's interesting was I had an opportunity to kind of peep in and listen to these conversations that Yolanda was having. Everything that Yolanda was talking about with them was making sure that the groups of individuals that were having challenges in reference to finding shelter, finding housing, that they have to be considered to be at the table first, not Yolanda. And I never heard of anything so, to me, in some cases, is selfish, because for most of us grassroots activists, we want a seat at the table. But I've heard plenty of people tell me this, and the late great George Mitchell used to tell me this all the time. You can't understand a patient unless you examine and speak to a patient. Yolanda's not the patient. Yolanda's not the homeless person. She may be an advocate for many different issues and many different struggles, but she's not the patient. So you can't have these meetings, you can't have these forums, you can't be talking about housing issues or homelessness issues without the people that are involved in homelessness. And that's all Yolanda kept emphasizing the whole time to Commissioner Leach, to homeless services, was that if we're going to have a sit down, if we're going to come up with a temporary solution, and we're going to get them housed until Tuesday. And when we come up with, some other plans to move forward, the ones that need to be at the table is not all the advocates, it's not all the so-called grassroots activists. The ones that need to be there needs to be the homeless people in these rooms, because many times what happens is the discussions are held without the homeless community, and they never get to hear any of the negotiations. They never get to hear any of the bargaining. They never get to hear any of the selling out, vying for jobs, vying for buildings, vying for money, doing everything
Or
to.
just a positioning themselves. Anybody that know me knows that my whole campaign running for mayor, I told people we cannot have conversations about youth if the youth is not in the room. We cannot have conversation about seniors if the seniors are not in the room. We cannot have conversation about homeless if homeless is not in the room. We are not the ones who supposed to speak. We supposed to sit back, navigate, listen, and then come up with a viable solution from what they say or what they want, not what we want. That's
Mm-hmm,
not how it's that's not how advocacy. Well, see, that's why
mm-hmm,
I keep telling people I'm not an advocate, I'm a revolutionary. Because revolutionaries hold your hand, we walk you through, we will sit at their table with you in silence until we are called to speak. Other than that, other than that, it's not my meeting. And I tell people that all the time. It's not my meeting.
right.
You want to bring, and see, the thing is, I'm not willing to sit at everybody's table. I don't care about your table. Why would I sit at your table when my table was already built? Me coming to your table is me being compromised. I will not do it.
And that's why I love this woman so much, because she can't be unbought. I mean, she can't be bought. She can't be bothered. She can't be swayed. She can't be moved. Um, and she
Deron
can't
is
be.
backstage.
I got you, and she can't be compromised. I'm gonna bring him in 1 second. So today's episode, again, we're talking about the weaponization and the gaslighting of Baltimore, and I want to just explain the two definitions really quick before we move forward. Um, Weaponizing, it is adapted for the use as a weapon. And what we're seeing in many cases of all the different social ills, whether it be our youth, whether it be public safety, whether it be our formerly incarcerated citizens or our homeless population. We see too many times folks utilizing them as weapons to be able to, in some cases, yes, to try to get the information out there and to bring light to a problem that we have in Baltimore City. But in many cases, there's an underlying, unfortunately, uh, self fulfillment that's being looked at for either their selves or for their organizations. And in some cases, there's nothing wrong with that, but it has to be genuine in reference to the work that you're going to do for the people first. You understand? There's nothing wrong with getting a building, but is it all about the building, or is it about resolving the issue with the homeless community and ending homelessness? Because a building, in some cases, to me, is just a setup to continue, the perpetual cycle of homelessness. We're talking about solutions that Baltimore has, the solutions that Yolanda has in reference to the tiny village. We're talking about solving
Don't forget Big Sis
homelessness.
down there at the
Right. Oh,
theater.
that's right. Big sis down there, Sister Angie down there, Angela down there,
At the
in
Harlem
Harlem Park,
Theater.
at the Harlem Theater in Harlem Park. We're looking at resolving issues. We're not looking at just supporting our initiatives or our organizations to continue the cycles to keep going. No, we're looking at again resolving the issues.
Wait a minute,
And
but Jason, you don't notice something about bring Deron on. You
uh,
don't notice
I want
something
to
about
introduce him because he wants his
you ain't
introduction.
introduced
So,
me. We ain't do no introduction today. Just bring him on.
Okay.
And we're 30
Oh
minutes in.
no, you will not. I will receive my introduction, brother.
You
Go
better
ahead.
Well,
you're
he
in the
told
dark.
you.
Listen,
Told you.
listen, listen. Go ahead and hit that little thing. Matter of fact,
Yeah.
I'ma just I'm gonna just turn my camera off
He's gonna check
and let
himself
you do
out.
your thing. Yeah.
Deron, neither one of us had an
That,
introduction. We're
listen,
30
brother,
minutes in.
I
Look,
had
look, look,
nothing to do with that.
No, so
So,
what? You're
look,
late.
look,
look,
look.
brother,
Without further ado, let's bring him in. Without further ado,
who am I?
the greatest rapper alive in Baltimore City,
Uh-huh.
King Deron Hill.
Listen, brother. You know?
Don't forget he turned 33 on
That's
yesterday.
right.
Hey,
That's
hey,
right.
hey,
33
hey.
years, 33 revolutions,
I
you
got a
know,
That
33 year
around the
old.
earth. I mean, around the
hold up.
sun.
That's not the one that I asked for. That wasn't the introduction I
I
was looking
have
for.
a 33-year-old.
All right, all right. This is
that's
not going
gonna
the way it's
that's
supposed to
that's not
go.
gonna hit me till he turn 34 next year.
Listen, it's not giving what it's supposed to give.
Look. I wanted to explain the word gaslighting. According to the dictionary or according to online, it's saying that gaslighting is a form of psychological manipulation,
Mm-hmm.
which the abuser attempts to sow self-doubt and confusion in their victims' minds.
Mm-hmm.
And what we see too many times with our homeless communication, I mean, with our homeless community, is that manipulation, that psychological manipulation, um, uh, on both parties. And we want to be clear about something. When Yolanda started this organization, one of the things that was interesting that I found was Yolanda used to say all the time, like we went out to McCullough Homes, and we get out to McCullough Homes, and I hear her, telling the housing people there that she fights for tenants' rights and
Responsibility.
responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
And when I heard her say that, like I had to really think about it. I'm like, what is she talking about? And then she explained it to the housing director. She said, look, she said, I don't just look at, the ills. Yes, housing has issues. Yes, there's rats, there's infestation, there's neglect. You guys are a slumlord by far. But there's also stuff within our community ourselves that
Yeah.
we are
You
responsible
ain't had to
for.
say it like
Yeah,
that,
we have to
JC. You
take
made me seem like I
accountability.
was. Yeah, but he
Huh?
ain't had to say it like that. Told him
Yeah,
they
we
were
gotta take
slumlords.
They
we gotta take
are.
I
accountability.
Technically,
know that, but you ain't had to say that I said it.
I
Like
mean, housing is probably one of the biggest slumlords from the East Coast to the West Coast. They've done stories on 60 Minutes in reference to public housing throughout America. And people like Ben Carton came in and did absolutely nothing in reference to public housing because they don't get it. They don't get it. They think that public housing makes us lethargic. It only makes us lethargic when you don't have all the pieces together. And that's what we've been explaining to housing. When you don't have good residential services, you don't have good folks coming in with workforce development, when you have women and children that have been in public housing for 2 and 3 decades, there's a problem. And it's
And
not necessarily, well,
some
go
of the
ahead.
rules need to change as well. Like as far as you know, the father can't be in the household for particular things. Like a lot of the stuff need to be changed. A lot of those rules, like I don't know where the rules came from. I mean, I get it. The history of it was, we're trying to help people, women and children, but
no,
a
it
lot
was
of
it was done on purpose in the 70s. If you look at it, and
well,
I
yeah.
use this.
I'm saying like when you think morality, you would think that that would be the case. Okay, this guy got a halo. That's tough.
It's my
This is
logo.
our brother Chap. This is our brother
Oh,
Chap.
okay.
It's the logo for my show.
Yes,
Oh,
sir.
okay. Yeah,
Yeah,
but
Um,
good.
when you talk about the removal of the man out the household, it was intentional back in the 70s.
I mean, that, yeah,
It's still a part of slavery because they removed. I mean, they separated the family, they separated the household, and when they
right.
seen that they seen that the woman was the strongest with the man. So then they had to try. The woman is the strongest in the household.
yeah. They
She
had to
bears
separate it.
everything.
They had to separate it.
Right. They had to
Correct.
separate. In order to
Correct.
break the woman down, they had to remove the man, make the child the head of the household. And then once the child became the head of the household, let's remove him too.
Mm. Chap, you want to weigh on this?
Yeah, I just want to comment on that. That culture definitely precedes the 70s, but also understanding that when we removed men from black families and created this culture, the government also stepped in and married the mother,
Mm.
Hmm.
right? So we got
Yeah,
to
Mm.
understand that context as well, because now
That's
the
deep.
government's giving us food stamps and EBT and
Correct.
Medicaid, and so the
the woman
government
feels like
trying to
she don't
marry
need
those
the man.
families. Yeah, man, that's part of
Yeah.
the destruction.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
woman feels
Wow.
like she don't need the man. In a lot of
Yeah.
cases, the woman would take the food stamps over, just having a
And
male
the
in the
housing,
house.
right?
Yeah,
And the housing. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
because they don't
But
want to
wouldn't it
receive
make
that
better
benefit.
sense to have the man in the household who
Oh, I'm
works?
gonna tell you something else. I'm gonna tell you something else too. A lot of women don't want to be married for that same reason.
Oh yeah.
Because
Yeah.
they'll
And
lose it.
right. Right.
Yeah,
And then
they
you
don't want
wonder
to lose the
why
benefits.
marriage is low within the black community, especially in urban communities.
But
Well, there's
I'm
your
gonna tell you the
tie-in right
funny part
there.
about that. Marriage for especially like in my generation and a little younger, is higher than the previous generation. So it's like it's strange now because we have a lot more men being fathers, a lot more men stepping up. Now, don't get
What
me wrong. I'm not saying that to say it ain't terrible men out there. It's definitely that's gonna always be the case. But when it comes down to men, stand up men standing 10 toes down, it's a lot of that, and I see it a lot. A lot of my friends are these men that I'm explaining. And
But they also are self-sustained.
yeah, but
You have a
we
lot
run
of women
into
that
women.
manipulate the system
Yeah,
and marry and don't tell.
we run into women that don't want to change particular things about themselves, in order to better suit us.
To
hmm
reap the benefits of the government. Absolutely.
hmm
Yeah, and that,
If I can comment for a second on back
Sure.
on that thought, man, is um, we're speaking about fathers, right? And so part of that, part of them removing fathers from the picture as we're talking. So we all know, if you don't know, and as you join the the revolution here, and you join serving the community and been an activist and organizer, you'll learn to understand that with the governments and the big institutions, that data drives the capital for grants and stuff. And so what happens is, like you stated, to confirm what you stated, is that like a lot of women in a situation will not necessarily, the father will be in the kids' lives, right? But we won't get that piece of paper.
right.
So then what happens is the data becomes manipulated, where when we hear these stats about like abortions with single moms and all these other things, and the data exploits the numbers for black communities, they're not accurate, because I can tell you from our
Correct.
experience, and McCullough Homes alone, like, is a great example I like to use, is that we do a father-son basketball game. A lot of times we got more fathers coming to the game than sons, because we know that there's gonna be young men there that don't have a mentor, and so we can step in with them and engage them. And my point is this, is that just because we don't have that piece of paper doesn't mean that we're not in this situation, or we're not supporting our families.
Hmm.
But because of the culture that's created, we don't get that piece of paper that changes the data. That data is misrepresenting our culture, but then it's driving funds that are just going to perpetuate the whole thing. And
Yep.
so
Yeah, and it's
we
funny.
got to understand that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's funny because we don't get that piece of paper because we're told that if we don't get custody, we'll be automatically put on child support, and that's
hmm
scary for men. And it really shouldn't be, because if you're smart enough, child support shouldn't be uh a standard ground when
It
you
should
have
not
a
be a
child.
weapon.
Yeah,
It is
and
weaponized, and
Right.
yeah,
I'm a victim of it.
and it's
All my
it's
Yeah.
kids. Yep.
and it's real bad, because if you put the father on child support and he's an active father, a great father, you actually lose in the end, because he could just step away and say, "Hey, listen, I'm gonna just pay this child support and you deal with the rest." So if my child support payment is $300 a month or $300 a paycheck, you just got your $300. But
Right.
now you have
Right.
me away doing whatever I want to do or whatever I need to do, and you have to still pick up the slack. So people really need, especially women really need to think about that situation when you're trying to use child support as a weapon, because you lose.
Well, see, the problem is that people don't understand child support is a private and a private business. It's not a governmental business. You do
Right.
not have to use the child
Yeah,
support office in
yeah, it's
order
third
to
party.
right. You do not have to use them, because at the end it's still a business, and you have to pay these people for this. They don't tell you this. They
Hmm.
take over out of whatever money you suppose that they calculate, and then they divide and they take and they get their portion out after
hmm
they tell the father that
hmm
the mother receives social
hmm
service, food stamps, or medical assistance, and you have to pay
hmm
for it. That's why the
hmm
child support payments is so high, because by the mother receiving these services, the father then have to pay for it, because maybe the father could not afford to put him on insurance policy, but they're gonna make him pay for it anyway through the state
Yep.
agent.
Yep. Yep. I've been there, done that. Been there. And remember the old company PSI, which was probably the worst vendor for child support out there. I remember going there to Howard Street and just seeing the waiting room filled with young men that were in there. In many cases, were in there wrongfully because of an error, because of PSI. It wasn't an error on their part. They had wage garnishments. They had it being taken directly out, or in many cases, they were coming up there to PSI to Howard Street and making direct payments, but yet they were still delinquent and still getting their license shut down, still having issues with employment behind it, their taxes garnished, having all kinds of issues in the process, because of this mismanagement of this company that was, handled, to recover money. And what was interesting was I had read an article one year that, something out of the, 20, $30 million that was outstanding in reference to child support money, they had only recovered $4 million. Now imagine if you would have found a different way to bring fathers in and assimilate them back into the household so that they wanted to partake in their children's lives instead of, in some cases, running because the law is running after them now, or because the baby
And
mama
that's another
has
thing.
weaponized child support
Right, but
against
that's
that
another
father.
thing. This is not a criminal act. It
Yeah,
should be a civil act. If a parent want to sue the other parent, then it needs to go back to court. It should not have a criminal act attached to it.
right.
Right.
And then
Yeah.
a lot of men don't understand this too, and I'm gonna spill the beans on it. When a woman take you off child support, or said, whatever the case may be, if she take you off and they say that you owe X amount of money,
Your
she can
arrearance.
actually, she can actually get rid of the risk.
She could waive that.
Yeah,
Correct.
But
a
you
lot of men
cannot
don't
As
see
even
that.
know
long
that.
No, see,
as
you
it's
can.
not being claimed
Right.
by social service.
No, but
Because if
listen,
social
because wait a
services
minute, listen.
intervene,
I
they're going to
I
get
just
theirs
went.
regardless.
I went
Right.
through this. I went through this a couple of years ago with Deidre. Deidre be 32 next month, and her father kept coming from Philly asking me to go down child support because they were still garnishing his money. I hadn't received child support in years. So what they did was, because I signed a good claim cause, they're saying that the services of the institution needed to be paid. And they still was
Mm-hmm.
garnishing his wages off of that, even
Mm-hmm.
though he hasn't been on child support in a
Mm-hmm.
very long time.
Mm-hmm. That happens. It happens. Well, again, we're getting a little bit off subject because originally we were really talking about the incident that took place with the homeless community down there off of Gay Street, and to just bring some clarity because
But
the
that's
news
why
is
some of them are under that bridge.
right. Correct. You're absolutely right. And to just bring some clarity because the news media is truly misrepresenting. If anybody is misrepresenting, it's not Jason who's misrepresenting, it's the news media, because the news media tried to say that our dear brother Piff, also known as, they've been calling him by his government name, Lorenzo, on the news media, our dear brother Piff did not try to set himself on fire. So let's make that clear. What Piff did try to do was do an act of civil disobedience by dragging trash first out, then by dragging his tent out into the middle of the street, creating a circle of gasoline around the tent, and really didn't pour no gasoline on the tent itself,
He didn't
but
pour
was
none on himself.
and didn't pour none on himself, and was really just in an act of civil disobedience. Was he a harm to himself? No. Was he a harm to the community? No. Was it an act of civil disobedience? Of course it was. And it was out of desperation because of the fact that the mayor's office kept taunting the homeless community in reference to them being removed because they really wanted them out of the way for the farmers market.
Technically, it wasn't the mayor's office. It was one of the workers that worked for emergency maintenance. He was the one
Well,
doing it.
the homeless services.
Right. And I called him and asked him to stop. I mean, I called Deputy Leach and Christopher Shorter
But,
and asked
but
him to make him stop.
Right.
But by the time we got off the phone discussing, you know, strategically planning, they
Mhm.
didn't get the call until he called the police because he felt like they were threatening him. When in all actuality, he the one that started. He created the false narrative. If you ask me, he did it on purpose. He was
Correct.
taunting them because they turned the power off under the bridge, and
He
he
was
wanted to
gaslighting.
flex.
He was
Right,
gaslighting the
right,
circumstance. Again, here
right.
it is. Someone that I was talking about has been given the duty or the task to be in charge of something, like, for instance, being a part of homeless services, and you're taunting the homeless community by telling them they have to move. Now, let's back this up a little bit, though. When we spoke to Commissioner Harrison at 11:30 at nighttime, scolding him about what had took place down there, because the police did move in on the encampment. Miss Flowers was manhandled. Piff was tased, and his head fell on the concrete. He also, I think
They
he
clipped him.
sprained. I think he sprained his wrist, or he broke
No, he
his
broke his
wrist.
hand.
He broke his hand. So he
Well,
broke
he
his
didn't break
hand.
it. They broke his hand.
Right. They broke his hand in the process. So there was an incident that took place. But when I spoke to Commissioner Harrison made it clear that he was told to remove the encampment by force, with aggression. And that order didn't come from Commissioner Harrison. That order came up from higher up. So y'all could go run tell that if you need to, because again, we have to put it out the way that it was and how it happened. Now, although they were to come out there aggressively, there were folks down there on the ground that were trying to de-escalate the situation, and the police, who really and truly were acting on orders, and in many cases, and I'll say this wholeheartedly, many folks that deal with the homeless community don't have empathy for the homeless population. We watched it even with their own workers, where they don't even like to kind of touch or go around the homeless people because they feel they're dirty, they have hygiene issues, they may be carrying diseases or whatever have you, and they refuse to even go around the homeless people. And we
You guys,
watched.
you
Oh, go
guys are
ahead.
like, I just want to comment, man. You guys are nailing this all in the head, man. Because as you're speaking, I'm reading a text from one of my guys who's experiencing homelessness, and he chooses to Sergeant Michael Kurth. He's an Army sergeant. Um, he's like, I'm reading these texts, and he's saying exactly what you guys are saying about like the brute force. He's telling me. He told me. Let's see what day this was. This was about a month ago. He was sharing with me the like there's no consistency, there's no communication. So like he was staying on a parking lot in a space where the police during the day said, look, you're good to stay here. When shift changed, literally he said, the police bum rushed me off the parking lot, I don't know where to go. Right. And so we had to find somewhere for him to go. And then and then he goes on to say, use the same vocabulary you just used. He said they're treating us as if homelessness is a disease instead of a condition or an experience that can happen to
Mm.
anyone. And
Mhm.
these are texts from some of my homeless brothers that got my number, man. We stay in
Wow.
communication. We're talking, and maybe a lot of guys don't want to get on these shows and talk, and that's part of what you're addressing earlier is like bringing
Right.
people to the table for these conversations. Some of them are intentionally living this way because they're tired of all the politics and they're tired of all the lies.
Correct.
And I don't know if you guys ever talked about like when well, I won't say I supported like some other people who had the demonstration the week of August, leading up to August 20th. There was tents down at City Hall on the lawn, and with the intent of making people, making the agency, the homeless office, basically hold them accountable. Here's 30 people in tents who need somewhere to live, who
That
need.
was us, chat.
Okay, I don't want to put nobody out there, but yeah, so
Mhm.
Yolanda had people out there, and she said, "Look, these people all need services. Like, do your damn job." And we intended to stay there until the job was done. And what happened was the city came out and offered people bus tickets and money to leave. Here's $20. Go anywhere else because we can't have you here. You know what I mean? And so instead of doing their job, it's easier for them to like take $20 out of their pocket, give it to somebody, and somebody who's living in maybe in that situation is living more urgently and living in more of a situation where $20 can go a long way for the day, and like at least take care of them for a couple hours until the next moment of trauma. But um you know I've been in that situation. I've been homeless several times, and as a young man, well, I won't say homeless even, because I was privileged enough to at least have a roof over my head. I had an old box Volvo I lived out of when I was 15, and then again But at the same time, yeah, $20 goes a long way when you're in that situation. And even though you need all those things, I need an ID, I need a job, I need this and that, you know, $20 will go a long way in that situation. The mayor's office knows that, and so it's easier to bribe and make people go away than deal with them. And I think, I don't know if you guys speak to that, but that's part of the problem is accountability. We have consent decrees in place for, like, one of the young ladies who used to work for the city told me that the Baltimore city's had a consent decree for the water
Yeah, for the
since the
water
80s.
department.
Since the 80s,
Yeah,
bro.
yeah,
There's just no
yeah,
accountability. I am in
yeah.
contact occasionally, because I kind of backed off because it doesn't do much. But like the police department's consent decree, we're in violation every day, and I'm a volunteer for the police department. But I'm willing to say this at the cost of, like, what are you going to fire a volunteer? That's fine. But the truth is, we're in violation of our consent decree daily with the proactive policing, and
Yeah.
you say stuff, you tell the people who are overseeing. But really, there's, and no disrespect to them, but as far
Yeah.
as, like, the accountability for the people who are supposed to be doing it,
Yeah.
the lady, one of the ladies told me, she said, well, you can request a meeting with the commissioner. And so this is 3 months later, and every once a week I check in, like, hey, when's this meeting? They just blow you off, and there's no accountability. So
Mhm. Look, I was up at
what's the point?
11:30 at night fussing with the commissioner, like, telling them, where's the empathy, where's the
Bro,
de-escalation,
I've given them
where's the
5 years.
compassion,
Right. I've given
you
them
know?
5 years of 24/7 service as a chaplain, as a volunteer. You think he'd make time for one of his chaplains who's on the
Mm.
street, who's dealing
Yeah.
with people? You think he'd give a shit about what I have to say or what I need to share with him,
Yeah.
or at least entertain the invitation to talk about it, and just to no avail. There's just no accountability. He's here till his contract's over. He's done cut the budgets. He's not doing the proactive policing. And in
But I
fact,
got a question for you,
Yeah.
Chad.
go ahead.
Do you feel like people are using and weaponizing people for their own personal gain?
Sure. It's called politics.
It's not even politics. I'm talking about the
We're
grassroots
talking about
community.
also in the grassroots community, though.
Yeah. Yeah, because
Look, you already know. That's why there's people you mess with and there's people you don't. And when people show themselves and reveal themselves,
who they are, take them at their
right, then
word. You're
you
absolutely
just
correct.
what we do is we step away from that situation and we move on to a more lucrative investment as far as relationships.
Right.
Because sometimes people go through seasons, sometimes people are in a bad space. We never judge them, but it's like, okay, if this has happened, then I need to walk away from that and focus my energy on a productive person or a productive direction. And sometimes somebody put it on to me like this, because I'm a ride or die. Like, if you family, you family, and once I call you family, I'm ride or die no matter what. But they try to remind me is that some people are in your life for a season, and some are in for a lifetime.
Mm.
So for me, everybody I meet, once I call you family, my brother, my sister over here, like, I'm ride or die. And even though your season might separate us, I'm gonna be waiting for you to come back because I need you, because I know what you can do and I know your potential. And even though you might be in a space where you're like for me, like I make mistakes all the time, man. I put my foot in my mouth. I screw up, and that's okay, man, because
We
we're
all
all
fall.
people. We keep
We
it
all
moving.
fall. We all fall
Right.
short from the
But if
grace of God.
you know my heart, you know my
Right.
intentions, we continue to move forward. But yeah, like you said, and I think I have an idea what you're talking about, but there's many unique characters in this community. We all know that. Yolanda, you're one of them, you damn bully. Right. And sometimes personalities don't always click. And so there's other people like Jason's. I can tell Jason's a bridge, right? Like if somebody let's say they have a problem with Yolanda in the moment, well, Jason can mediate and bridge that
I mean,
communication to still
yes,
take care of business. And
yes.
so you guys can sit down and work it out
And
or
she
not.
don't like it. She don't like it.
That's
She
okay.
don't like it when I play negotiator, when I play mediator.
Because
She
it's
doesn't
not
like
even,
it.
I don't even feel like it's a negotiation at the time, because I thrive myself. And this one advocate keep telling me, Yolanda, you have to work with somebody. I work with everybody. The problem is that I don't coalition, I don't partner with, I don't speak on these people. I do not do that. Like I
Right.
said, I don't need to come to your table when I already have a table built.
And what's
That
crazy
doesn't even
is
make sense.
right. What's crazy is, let's bring this up. Ms. Flowers wanted us to be a part of this coalition, that had all these folks, Pastor McGeechin and all these folks that were supposed to have been involved. Where were these folks Saturday night? Where were these folks Saturday night?
All
When the
week
homeless
long.
community needed them, right? Where are these folks all week long? When the
Well,
community really needed them, when we really needed to step up and have these negotiations
And
with the city.
that's what I speak to, because there is moments where those people are very effective and their voice is very loud and very heard, and they and all of us do this, right? We all have our moments where we're very much in the moment and effective, and then there's moments where we fall short. I'm not defending anyone. I'm telling you that, and even at the point, even at the risk of like offending people, like there's a guy who's in charge of a trauma team in Baltimore, and so he's a doctor, and Dr. Humphreys, I'll share with you. I've been partnered with him for like 2 years in the Southeast, mediating in the high tourist areas like Fells Point, Harbor East, Inner Harbor. And in 2 years, I have never seen him. Right. And so it's like, yeah, where are you? But then when the cameras come out, when somebody's shot by a squeegee boy at the harbor, cameras come out, you won't see me, but you'll see him on camera, and he'll be talking about they need money, they need money. And it's like, well, do you even know the young man's name who pulled the trigger, or do you even know why he pulled the trigger? Did you know that he got in an altercation, a physical altercation that day with a delegate or senator or whatever? I don't do politics. Antonio Hayes was politicking, right? Got in a fist fight with the squeegee boys. Gave a description. Police picked the young man up. He couldn't be bothered because he was politicking. So he couldn't be bothered to come identify the young man. The young man got let go. The young man ended up pulling the trigger later. Right? So if our leadership can't be bothered to step up, then how do you expect us to?
Right. Or let's call it like it is. Today we're watching the news this morning and we see somebody talking about, well, I was hurt and I was mistreated and I was mishandled and I was, this and that in the process. But there was a young man who was knocked unconscious, who broke his hand, who was tased, and who was told by the media tried to light himself on fire. And never once did I hear you mention anything in reference to this young man, identify this young man, or say anything in reference to this young man. I didn't hear any of that.
Wait a minute, I want to ask a question. I want to ask, is Chap
and we got to wrap up. No, Chap is gone, and we got
okay,
well,
I want to ask a question. Did anybody see Yolanda Pulley on any camera or give a statement to any newspaper? Nobody even knew I was there. And that was intentional, because yet again, this was not Yolanda's movement. Yet again, this was not a part where Yolanda's supposed to shine. It was about those people down there and trying to help them navigate through whatever situation they was going through. So no, I did not jump on nobody's camera. I did not jump on nobody's. They say, "Can I talk to you?" No, go talk to them. You can
right,
you
because
give a
that's
few
the
words?
patient. That's the patient at the end of the day. That's the patient, and you're not going to understand the true story of someone's plight unless you go to speak to directly to them.
Exactly.
And with that, we have to wrap ourselves up. Don't forget, family, to join Smaltimore coming up. Small. Look, I'm getting ready.
Shared spaces.
Shared spaces with Chap and Quita.
Quilla quesadilla.
She likes to call it Quilla de Quesadilla. And family, we will see y'all next week, same time, same bat channel. And again, y'all want to reach out to us and y'all want to have the conversation. Again, my number, I always list my number on my Facebook page. Yolanda's number is listed as well. Any of y'all can call us if y'all have a problem with anything that we said today. And we can continue the discussion from there. But one thing that we have to stop doing is we have to stop mistreating our homeless population, and in some
Stop
cases,
using them.
right? Stop using them, and in some cases, we have to have our tough love with them whenever necessary, because at the end of the day, some of our homeless population had unrealistic expectations as to what was going to happen in reference to their plight with homelessness.
10 seconds.
And we have to really,
we gotta go.
We really have to lay out realistic expectations for our people. So with that being said, we will catch y'all next week. Same time. We love y'all. Peace.